She was the last one out. Clinic lights off. Keys in hand. Phone buzzing. Another night spent healing a community the system forgot. Then came the sirens. No warning. No cause. Just the cold snap of handcuffs and eyes that never saw her worth. Dr. Ayanna Brooks. Professor. Surgeon. Community hero. Reduced to a suspect. Because in this country, brilliance wrapped in black skin is still treated like a threat. But what they didn't know was who they had just put their hands on. One call. One name. And the floor beneath their power began to crack. What followed? Not a trial. Not an apology. A firestorm. Exposed corruption. Buried files unearthed. An assassination attempt gone wrong. A movement born in the chaos. This isn't just a story of injustice. It's a blueprint for what happens when the silenced refuse to stay quiet. Welcome to Chronicles of Black Resilience. Fire if this shook you, don't just watch, join. Subscribe now. Hit the notification bell. Comment your truth. And share this before they try to bury it. The sirens didn't wail. They crept. The kind of quiet approach predators use when their prey is alone, distracted, and unsuspecting. Autumn leaves scattered along the cracked sidewalk of Southbridge, Georgia, a town where time moved slow and judgment moved fast. It was just past 6 p.m., the golden hour, and Dr. Ayanna Brooks was standing outside a small community clinic, keys in one hand, phone in the other, locking up after volunteering her usual shift. Dressed in gray slacks and a navy blouse, her hair twisted neatly into a bun, Ayanna looked more professor than pedestrian. But none of that mattered when the cruiser rolled up behind her like a shadow. "Ma'am. Hands where I can see 'em." She froze. The voice was a demand, not a request. Deep, southern, and laced with that subtle venom black folks recognize instantly. Ayanna turned slowly, phone still in her hand. "Excuse me?" Two officers stepped out of the cruiser. One younger, anxious. The other, older, bulkier, walked like a man who never expected to be questioned. His name tag read, Captain W. Rogers. "You fit the description of a suspect fleeing a robbery 2 blocks from here," Rogers said, eyes narrowing like a hawk circling over prey. "Drop the phone. Turn around." Ayanna blinked. She looked around. The block was nearly empty. No witnesses. No neighbors out. Her heart began to pound in her ears, but her voice remained calm, too calm for Rogers' liking. "Sir, I'm Dr. Ayanna Brooks. I work here at the clinic. I've been inside for the last 5 hours. You can verify." I said turn around. Rogers barked. The younger cop hesitated. "Captain, maybe we should listen to her first. You want to teach me this job, rookie? Better shut up and let's cuff her." The 2 aggressive white police officers violently slammed her against the side wall of the urban clinic with another one that suddenly joined them, raising his baton high with rage and threatening to strike her. Ayanna's breath caught in her throat. Is this happening? Her fingers trembled as she lowered her phone to the ground. But just before she turned, she tapped one button. Speed dial, Aunt Miriam. Connected. The phone stayed live. Inside the cruiser, cuffed and humiliated, Ayanna sat in stunned silence. Her wrists were sore. Rogers hadn't just cuffed her, he'd enjoyed it. He smirked through the whole thing even when she calmly asked for her lawyer. Even when she repeated 3 times that she was a physician. Even when she told him she had never been arrested. And still no Miranda rights. No explanation. Just assumptions. "You know what I think?" Rogers said as the car cruised toward the precinct. "I think you're one of those educated types who thinks your degrees make you immune. But out here? That ain't how it works." Ayanna didn't respond. She stared out the window at her neighborhood, her home, passing by like a dream unraveling. She thought about the white patients she'd treated today, the babies she'd vaccinated, the elderly woman she'd helped walk again. She thought about her mother's legacy, the first black nurse in this part of Georgia. And she thought about her Aunt Miriam. Let the call go through, Ayanna prayed. Let her hear everything. The holding cell smelled like mildew and despair. 3 cinder block walls and a set of bars, the kind that didn't just trap bodies but crushed dignity. She sat there for over an hour. Alone. No phone call granted. No lawyer. No charge explained. She wasn't booked. She was being taught a lesson. Outside, Rogers laughed with another officer. "Slick little thing. Thought she'd intimidate us with that doctor talk. Don't worry. She'll learn her place." Unbeknownst to him, someone else was learning too. 45 minutes later, the tide shifted. The door to the precinct slammed open so hard it echoed down the hall like a gunshot. Deputy Chief Miriam Johnson, 40-year veteran, 6 feet of thunder and grace, stormed through with a legal team on her heels and fire in her eyes. In one hand she held a printout of the precinct's own arrest logs, Ayanna's name missing. In the other, her own badge shining like a beacon of truth in a fog of corruption. "I want my niece out of that cell. Now," she said, her voice a command issued from Mount Sinai. Rogers stepped forward, puffed up. "Now hold on, she was involved in saving lives today. Including your mother's last month at that same clinic you just kidnapped her from," Miriam cut in. "I heard everything. You never read her rights. Never logged the arrest. This isn't just misconduct, it's a civil rights violation." His face paled. "You didn't know who she was, did you?" Miriam continued, stepping close enough he could feel the heat from her words. "But you're gonna learn today. Because I'm calling the DA, the state attorney, and every press outlet from Atlanta to DC. And by the time I'm done, your pension won't buy you a bag of peanuts." Ayanna emerged minutes later, her wrists red but her chin high. Rogers tried to protest, but Miriam silenced him with a raised hand. "Every word you said is recorded. From, 'you fit the description,' to that smug little lesson you were teaching. Hope it was worth your career." The tension in the room was thick, electric. Rogers stood frozen, watching the woman he had mocked walk out of his precinct free and powerful. Later that night, Ayanna sat on her aunt's porch, sipping tea with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Miriam looked over. "You did the hard part. You stayed calm. You gave them the rope. I just made sure they hung themselves with it." They both stared out into the night, the streetlights casting long shadows across the lawn. "I've worked my whole life to be seen as more than just black," Ayanna said softly. "But today, none of that mattered." "No, baby. It did matter. Because now they don't just see a black woman, they see a black threat to their injustice. And that's power." Rogers sits alone in his cruiser, watching his career evaporate through breaking news alerts on his phone. Then it buzzes again. Unknown number. He picks up. Voice on the other end, "This isn't over. You messed with the wrong family." Click. The camera pans out slowly as Rogers looks around, realizing, for the first time, he's the one being watched. A town erupts in protest, secrets within the police department surface, and Ayanna's rise turns from survival to revolution. But someone is determined to silence her, for good. Not just noise but rage wrapped in purpose. Cardboard signs trembling in determined fists. "Justice for Ayanna. Dismantle Southbridge PD. Black Lives Heal." The chants echoed down the streets of downtown Southbridge like war drums. Young and old. Black, brown, and white allies locked arm in arm. Helicopter blades thump overhead. The city is no longer silent. But in the middle of it all stands Dr. Ayanna Brooks, stoic, centered, transformed. She isn't asking for justice anymore. She's demanding it. 48 hours earlier. The morning after her release, Ayanna stood before a bank of microphones, her aunt beside her, flanked by civil rights attorneys and community leaders. The press conference was brief, controlled, powerful. In a country that prides itself on liberty and justice, black women are still arrested for existing, Ayanna said. "My name is Dr. Ayanna Brooks, but yesterday all they saw was another target. So let me make one thing clear. I'm not pressing charges just for me. I'm pressing charges for everybody who never got the chance to walk out." The footage spread like wildfire. CNN, MSNBC, Twitter hashtags. Hashtag justice for Ayanna. Hashtag she fit the description. Hashtag Rogers resign. And then, the attacks began. That night, Ayanna's car was vandalized. Slashed tires. Liars spray painted in red across her driver's side door. A broken rearview mirror, like someone trying to erase how far she'd come. Detective Taylor from Internal Affairs came by the clinic. A black woman with an iron spine and no time for sugarcoating. "They're pushing back hard," she told Ayanna. "Rogers is lawyering up. His union rep is claiming procedural confusion and trying to spin it like you overreacted. Internal records show he's got 6 excessive force complaints, all buried. Why wasn't he fired?" Ayanna asked, jaw tight. Taylor exhaled slowly. "Because this department protects its own. Until now." Ayanna nodded. "Then let's dig up everything." Meanwhile, Rogers wasn't just scared, he was cornered. The call had come from a blocked number, but the message was clear. There were bigger players behind the scenes who didn't want the status quo disrupted. One of them had even visited him privately. An old, white councilman named Rutherford Gage, the kind who called black men boy, and thought colored folk should be grateful. "You need to make this go away," Gage told him, sipping bourbon in a leather chair. We've kept this town quiet for years. You let this woman turn it into Ferguson, and you're not the only one who'll fall. You want me to scare her? Gage's eyes narrowed. I want you to remind her who controls Southbridge. But Ayanna wasn't scared. She was digging. Late into the night, with her team of community organizers, lawyers, and local journalists, she uncovered what Southbridge tried to bury. Body cam footage from previous Rogers stops mysteriously lost. Minority officers disciplined at 5x the rate of white ones. A neighborhood surveillance initiative that exclusively targeted black zip codes. And a secret fund within the PD, used for payouts and hush money. Each revelation was a blow. Not just to Rogers but to the whole machine. Ayanna didn't release them all at once. She let them bleed out, drip by damning drip. Meanwhile, tensions reached a boiling point. Protests swelled into marches. Marches turned into boycotts. Businesses affiliated with city council members saw profits tank. And the cops? They retaliated with petty arrests, intimidation, even drones circling over community meetings. But Ayanna never flinched. At one town hall, a woman shouted, "They'll come for you next." Ayanna took the mic. They already did. And I'm still here. Then came the breaking point. A week after the incident, as Ayanna left the clinic, a black SUV tailed her down a dark back road. Her instinct screamed. She turned erratically, dipped into an alley, parked and waited. The SUV passed slowly. Inside were two men in plain clothes. She caught the glint of a badge, police but not from Southbridge. When she returned home, her apartment had been ransacked. Files missing. Laptops wiped. But the one thing they couldn't erase? The cloud backup. Ayanna smiled coldly. You're playing checkers. I'm playing chess. The next morning she made the boldest move yet. Ayanna walked into the Southbridge courthouse and filed a federal lawsuit. Not just against Rogers, but against the Southbridge Police Department, the mayor's office, and the city council. Civil rights violations. RICO violations. Conspiracy. She even subpoenaed Gage's phone records. And as the media swarmed, she gave one quote. The system wasn't broken. It was built this way. So I'm not fixing it, I'm dismantling it. Rogers, alone in his home. He's disheveled. Watching the news. Every anchor says the same thing. Ayanna Brooks is winning. He picks up his phone and dials. Gage, we have a problem. That girl won't stop. There's a long pause. Then Gage says darkly, then maybe it's time we stop her. The price of justice is knowing who's willing to kill to keep it buried. They tried to silence her. The night air was thick with the promise of violence. It was almost midnight when Ayanna's phone buzzed again. Another death threat, crude, anonymous and chilling. Turn back or be buried. She didn't flinch anymore. Fear had been replaced by something far more dangerous, purpose. The camera lingers on her steady hands as she locks the clinic doors, shoulders her worn leather bag, and steps into the shadows of a town that had turned against her, and still, somehow, belonged to her. What Ayanna didn't know was that two cars were already positioned down the block. Waiting. Hunting. Meanwhile, inside a smoky country club on the edge of town, the real game was being played. Councilman Rutherford Gage sat with a group of senior officials, including the mayor, a judge, and 3 retired officers. Scotch glasses clinked. Deals were made without words. She's a problem, Gage said, voice low. And the longer she breathes, the more noise she makes. The mayor, a pale man with bloodhound eyes, leaned in. We can't afford another Selma. You know what happened when they let them march. So we don't let her march. Gage's grin was a scar. We make an example. The plan was already in motion. Driving home, Ayanna sensed the SUV first, headlights dimmed, tailing her too perfectly. She made 3 random turns. It followed. Her chest tightened. She pulled into a gas station, heart hammering. She knew better than to stop in an isolated spot, but there were no witnesses at midnight in Southbridge. The SUV pulled in after her. 2 men in tactical gear jumped out, faces covered. No badges. No words. Ayanna barely slammed her door shut before they reached her. One grabbed for her, rough hands around her jacket. Then, blinding lights. A second car barreled into the lot, Detective Taylor, siren blaring. The men scattered like roaches. Taylor jumped out, gun drawn. Get down. The would-be attackers peeled out, tires screeching into the night. Ayanna collapsed against the hood of her car, trembling, not from fear but rage. They just tried to kill you, Taylor said, breathless. No, Ayanna whispered, voice cold. They just gave me proof. The next morning the video went viral. Gas station security footage, leaked by a sympathetic employee, showed the attempted abduction. The hashtags exploded. Hashtag they tried to silence her. Hashtag Ayanna strong. Hashtag Southbridge cover-up. National news anchors couldn't ignore it anymore. Politicians tweeted thoughts and prayers while scrambling for cover. And Ayanna? She stood on the courthouse steps once again, this time facing a sea of cameras and supporters from across the country. Her voice rang out like a battle hymn. They tried to silence me in the dark, but we are not afraid of the dark anymore, because we are the light. And when they come for one of us, they come for all of us. The crowd erupted. This wasn't just about Southbridge anymore. It was about America. Meanwhile, in a dark office, Gage and Rogers panicked. They're treating her like a martyr. Rogers snapped. The DOJ's involved now. Gage's hand trembled slightly as he poured another drink. It's not just her anymore. She's building something bigger. He clicked on the TV. Ayanna announcing a new organization. Project Phoenix, Rebuilding from Ashes. A national initiative to train, fund, and protect Black activists, community leaders, and political candidates. Grassroots. Crowdfunded. Unstoppable. She wasn't fighting the system. She was replacing it. But with the revolution came new threats. That night, an email arrived on Ayanna's burner phone. You don't know the half of it. Meet me tomorrow. 3 p.m. Riverside Park. Come alone. Taylor urged caution. This smells like a setup, she said. Ayanna nodded. Maybe. But it could also be the break we need. Taylor hesitated, then handed Ayanna a tiny mic. At least let me listen in. Ayanna slipped it into her bra strap, heart pounding. No turning back now. At Riverside Park, the wind rattling dead leaves across the grass in the empty park. Ayanna stands alone, eyes scanning every shadow. Suddenly, a figure steps out. What it? Hands raised. I have proof, he says. A lot bigger than Southbridge. Ayanna's voice is steady. Proof of what? He lifts his head. Under the hood. A Southbridge cop. A black cop. They've been running secret ops for years. Targeting activists, doctors, journalists, anybody who spoke up. And it's not just Southbridge. It's statewide. They call it Operation Iron Hand. Ayanna's stomach drops. Before she can respond, a gunshot cracks through the air. The officer's body jolts, blood blooms across his chest. Ayanna ducks instinctively, heart slamming against her ribs. From across the park, a sniper's silhouette fades into the night. The mic in Ayanna's bra strap crackles. Taylor's voice screams through. Run, Ayanna. Run. Ayanna goes underground. Operation Iron Hand's full scope is revealed. Whistleblowers start disappearing. A national rally is planned, the biggest since the March on Washington. And Ayanna faces an impossible choice. Save herself, or save the movement. The screen flickers. Static. Ayanna breathing heavily. Her face appears hollow-eyed, bruised but alive. She's hiding in a cramped basement, makeshift maps and files scattered behind her. A battered laptop glows, its webcam blinking. She's recording a message. If you're seeing this, she says, voice steady but raw, they failed. After the Riverside Park assassination, Ayanna disappeared. Not by choice, by survival. Detective Taylor moved her underground. Safe houses, burner phones, encrypted emails. Ayanna wasn't just a protest leader now. She was a target of a statewide conspiracy. Operation Iron Hand wasn't some rogue unit. It was a state-sanctioned black ops program, designed to neutralize black activists, journalists, educators, anyone deemed a threat to public order. Neutralize didn't just mean discredit. It meant destroy. Meanwhile, the world above ground burned. Protests surged across the country. Chicago shut down its city hall. Atlanta saw 100,000 marchers pour through downtown. Oakland police stations were ringed by human shields. Hashtag Ayanna Lives trended globally. But not everyone believed it. Southbridge PD released doctored footage claiming Ayanna fled because she was guilty. Local news spun her as a radical, a liar, a black extremist. The state governor, who'd quietly funded Iron Hand, called for law and order to be restored at any cost. Assassination teams were deployed. At the safe house basement, Ayanna studies the files stolen from the dead officer's flash drive. Names, dates, code words, secret meetings. Evidence that reached all the way to the governor's mansion. But it wasn't just cops and councilmen. It was judges, district attorneys, CEOs of private prisons profiting off black and brown bodies. Ayanna realized with a sickening clarity, she wasn't fighting a bad department. She was fighting the architecture of modern racism itself. and they were willing to kill to protect it. Ayanna's plan sharpened. She couldn't hide forever. She couldn't just leak documents and hope. She needed a moment so big, so public, they couldn't silence her without exposing themselves. She needed a national rally. And not just any rally. The Second March on Washington. Ayanna held secret meetings with grassroots organizers. Activists breaching government firewalls. Underground networks printing flyers, spreading word, gathering millions. Celebrities quietly wiring money. Ayanna's voice, ghost-like on pirate radio stations. If they could kill our leaders yesterday, they think they can kill our dreams today. But this time we're all leaders. And dreams don't die. They multiply. The D-Day in Washington, D.C. The National Mall thrums like a beating heart. Hundreds of thousands flood the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Banners snapping in the wind. We are Ayanna. Abolish Iron Hand. Build from ashes. Ayanna steps up to the podium. Bulletproof glass surrounds her. Snipers scan the rooftops. The world watches. Her voice slices the air. They told me freedom was earned. They told me justice was a myth. They told me to wait my turn. I'm not waiting anymore. The crowd roars. This isn't just about me. It's about everybody who lived in fear. It's about every ancestor who dared to dream. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Tears stream down faces. Fists rise. Ayanna held up a thick manila envelope, copies of every Iron Hand document, and drops it onto a wooden table beside her, live on camera. Operation Iron Hand is over. And the people who built it are about to meet real justice. She slams her palm down on a giant red button. Files upload in real time to public servers around the world. The truth floods the internet faster than any cover-up could contain. It's irreversible. Unstoppable. Revolutionary. There were massive spontaneous reactions across America. FBI agents raiding Southbridge City Hall. Politicians in handcuffs. Iron Hand's architects being perp-walked on live TV. Memorials erected for the murdered activists. New laws introduced, transparency acts. Whistleblower protections. Community-led police boards. For the first time in generations, the system was bleeding, and the people were winning. 1 year later. Ayanna walked down a bustling street in a rebuilt Southbridge. Murals bloom on once blank walls. Fists, flowers, phoenixes. A little black girl tugs Ged on her mother's arm as Ayanna passed. "Mommy," the girl whispered, "is that her?" The mother smiles, kneels to her daughter's level. "That's Dr. Ayanna Brooks," she said. "The woman who showed the world, we don't beg for justice. We build it." Ayanna meets the little girl's gaze. And smiles. And the girl's mother said. "They tried to silence her. She gave us a voice instead." This story shook you. Don't scroll. Stand up. Subscribe to Chronicles of Black Resilience, because the next story could be yours. Hit the notification bell, or miss the moment justice rises. Drop a comment. Make noise they can't ignore. Share this now because silence is their weapon. Silence lets injustice breathe. This isn't just content. This is more than a video. This is Chronicles of Black Resilience, where every story strikes back, and every viewer becomes a force.